Hello everyone, back again in the shed. Unfortunately today I had hoped to actually get a full day in of playtime, but unfortunately other errands and things like that got in the way, but we've still got a couple of hours, so I'm still going to try and get something done. Before we do, just wanted to start with a quick appeal in that so far I haven't really advertised this channel to anyone other than my immediate friends and things who I know like such things. I was just wondering if anyone out there had anyone else they'd like to invite to subscribe, or if they had any suggestions for where I might advertise the channel just to pick up a few more people. We've had a few subscribers and viewers trickle in just from YouTube without having to really do anything. I think as it stands there's about 17 people subscribed to the channel. It would be nice to get up past that 20 figure, so if anyone has any ideas regarding that, do let me know. So last time we effectively spent most of our time sharpening my plane and then using my plane to get the body to fit a little bit closer to the cap. Now, I did express at the end of the last video that I really wanted to route around this cap to get it nice and flush with the body, just because I think visually that will really make me feel like I've made some progress on this. Now, I am fully aware that that is not the conventional wisdom that you should do that at this point. The reason being that it's normally done when the cap is actually glued to the body. The reason for that, I guess, is just that if you have any slight movement at all in the cap, then you're going to end up with a lip, and no matter how hard you try, you're just not going to get as flush a joint as you're going to get if you glue the thing solid in place and then proceed to level the two out. All of that said though, however, despite all of that best advice, I'm still tempted to go against that. Reason being, apart from the fact I want to do it, is that what I probably haven't mentioned so far is that the body, it's probably quite hard to tell on the video, but because my template was fairly rough and I was a bit rough with the router and all this kind of thing, the side of the back piece of the body isn't actually all that flat. It's quite wavy when you look around it, and there are some sort of score marks in it and things like that. So I was intending that I'm going to have to run it round the bobbin sander. Well, I don't have a bobbin sander, my poor man's bobbin sander, at some point, and effectively sand off a good sort of 2 mil probably for round most of the body, just to get the shape nice and smooth. So with that in mind, I think it's perfectly possible that at this stage I could actually do what I wanted to do with the cap, and just make sure I glue it before I do that sanding. Really, I am convincing myself more and more that I should glue it sooner rather than later. I wanted to try and carve as much as I possibly could and everything before committing to gluing the two pieces together, and I know that's just not ideal and it's going to cause problems. So I am bringing that gluing stage further and further forward in my mind, but nevertheless, still, I think I'm going to go with that routing. The only other thing to mention really is that I did have some other things planned for today, but unfortunately my local tool shop doesn't tend to stock all of the specialist tools that I need to do these things, and well, the postman's not instant and my bank account is not limitless. But never mind, let's crack on with the routing and then I'll tell you what we're going to do after that. So I've just stopped the video there for a second because I've made two observations. Number one is what I should have realised, but I wasn't thinking. There's still far too much excess on there to properly run this around the router table. So I should really quickly run around the bandsaw first, which I'll do in a second. The other is that the router was turned up far too fast, because as you can see there, getting some scorch marks on the wood, which is no good. But it was actually turned up pretty fast actually. I forgot that from last time I used it. So I'm going to turn the speed down on the router when we go back to the table as well. But let's lob off that excess first. There we go, much more appropriate border on there now, and hopefully the router table is going to be running at a much more appropriate speed as well. So there we have it. How cool is that? Very pleased to see that I can't really see much of a visible gap anywhere. The only place I can is probably right here on the end, and if I just press down on that gently, it does close up. So here's the plan. We already know that the body is fairly thick and heavy, and we want to do our best to kind of minimize that. I am planning on taking some more material out from inside the body, but I'm waiting on a router bit coming in the post to do that, or do most of that anyway. I do want to obviously carve the top. I want to take a radiused router bit round the edges to make curved edges, although we won't do that until we've got a final outer edge. And I also want to try and put a bit of a carve into the back. What I thought would be really good is to effectively do your typical kind of neck carve in this area, where you kind of get like a bowl effect, taking most of this material out. If possible as well, maybe also slim the horns around here. But it just depends, because with it being a hollow body, one be very careful obviously not to go through it. If we did for some reason, I'd be very, very surprised, and would maybe be able to come up with some way to kind of patch it up, but obviously we really don't want to do that. So what I actually wanted to do, I was very interested in the method of carving, which is to effectively take an angle grinder, but with either a rasp or a sanding disc on it, remove the guard, and effectively just use that to carve the body. It's a bit scary, but also quite rapid, and it seemed to make sense to me. But unfortunately, the local tool shops, as I say, don't actually stock any of the discs for doing that. So I'm not going to get them today. So what I do have though, however, is nothing special, but some good old rasps, and I could definitely do that carve with rasps. That wouldn't be a problem at all. It's just a shame that this back piece here would probably be the best place to try the angle grinder method, rather than maybe deciding to use it later on the top, having never tried doing anything like that before. But if that's the way it has to be, so be it. I mean, depending on the order things come together, I might get the chance to try the angle grinder out on some scrap, or on the neck maybe, but we'll see. So that's the plan. But before we can actually start rasping away there, we actually need to take a look inside and see what our sort of margin for error is. Well, I'll show you. So if you remember, I intentionally left this area unhollowed to give me the leeway to be able to do this. So what I need to do is just try and give myself some indicator lines to make sure that I'm not going to carve in or past that point. So I'll just mark on the sides first of all where the extremities are. Translate that to this side. And obviously not too bothered about the middle anyway. I'm just going to draw a line across there. Doesn't have to be square or symmetrical, it's going to be sort of a natural curved shape anyway, but there we go. And we kind of want a sweeping curve. About here. Trying to make it as deep as possible. It's not really necessarily for ergonomic reasons, I just want to remove as much material as I possibly can for weight purposes really. That looks good to me. And ideally what I'd like to do, much like the top carve, is bring another curve in along here. It's sort of like a belly carve almost, but we haven't got a lot of thickness to play with, so if anything that'll just be very, very subtly sanded in, but we'll see. And again, same on this side. Now before we can start rasping away there, one thing we do need to do is make sure we don't go too far and start carving into the neck pocket. On a standard PRS, at this point, the entire guitar, including the cap, is about 2 inches. I think my back piece alone is actually about 2 inches, or possibly even slightly over. The neck pocket, excluding the cap, will generally be about 1 inch, with about ½ an inch of back material left on. So that means if I want the body around the neck area to be the same thickness as an old PRS, it would need to come in about ½ an inch, which isn't very extreme at all really. I definitely couldn't go in any further than about 3/4 of an inch, because after that I'm going to be cutting into the neck pocket. So I just need to mark on there, which you might struggle to do on camera. I just need to mark on there a line around ½ an inch. They're just some rough guidelines to give me the extremities of where I can go with the file.
Yeah, close enough. So I don't know how well the camera's picking this up, but I think we must be about an hour into using the rasp. And we're almost where we want to be with that carve. Don't know if you can see. That line, there's only a few mil left to go before we hit that maximum line that we drew before. But it's a very subtle, steady curve. It feels good in the hand, but I think before we finalise it any further, I want to bring the horns down, and to do that I need to start working on the outside. But I think it's time for a cup of coffee first. So actually, having sat down and had a cup of coffee and realised the time, I don't know why I keep looking at my wrist, I'm not wearing a watch today, but never mind. I think I'm going to drop tools and call it a day for today. I'm probably coming back tomorrow, not that the videos will get released a day after each other probably. The carving is still in progress. I've actually screwed the top back on just so I can sort of admire things so far. I really don't know how well the camera is actually picking up how much has been carved away there so far. It's pretty slow going, and for that reason I would really still like to try the rotor rasp. I might even leave some carving to do on the back just to give me the chance to try that before going on to the front really. But I am liking the control at least I've got with the file. It just is slow going. They are the cheapest files you could possibly buy. They're probably not very sharp. I did have one of those Shinto saw rasps on my Christmas list, but I haven't got one yet. So many tools to buy. But no, it's going pretty good, so we'll leave it there for today. I think next time we'll probably come back, carry on with a little bit of carving until my hands get sore, and then we'll maybe take a look at something else and maybe just sort of keep coming back to it. But that's looking pretty nifty so far. The one thing I'm going to do before I leave actually is just weigh this, and I'll just leave a subtitle now to tell you how much it weighs compared to how much it did previously. But for the time being, goodbye.